I'm sorry, but we don't treat people like you here. Dr. Richard Ashford didn't even look up from his phone as he said it. His voice carried that particular tone of dismissal that wealthy people use when they want you to disappear without them having to waste energy on actual rudeness. Lily stood in the waiting room of Meridian Private Medical Center, one hand pressed against her lower abdomen where the pain had been growing sharper for the past 2 hours. Her jeans were from Target. Her jacket had a small tear near the pocket that she'd been meaning to sew. Her sneakers were clean but obviously worn. And apparently that was enough. I have insurance, Lily said quietly, trying to keep her voice steady despite the cramping that made it hard to stand straight. I called ahead. Your receptionist said walk-ins were accepted until 4 p.m. Dr. Ashford finally glanced up, and his eyes did that quick scan that people do when they're assessing your worth based on your appearance. Designer watch, perfectly styled salt and pepper hair. A white coat so crisp it probably cost more than Lily's entire outfit. Our receptionist made an error, he said with a thin smile. Meridian caters to a very specific clientele. I'm sure there's a county clinic that can help you. Good luck. My name is Lily Chen, and I never imagined that seeking medical care at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday would become the moment that changed everything. I was 33 years old, and for the past 6 years, I've been working 16-hour days building something from nothing, while most people like Dr. Ashford assumed I was nobody worth their time. Dr. Ashford, the receptionist called from her desk, a young woman named Jennifer who looked genuinely uncomfortable. She did call ahead, and I did confirm. Her insurance is actually premium tier. Jennifer, are you questioning my clinical judgment? Doctor. Ashford's tone shifted from dismissive to sharp. I'm telling you that we are at capacity. We cannot accommodate this situation. 3 other patients sat in the waiting room, watching this exchange with varying degrees of discomfort. An older white woman in pearls looked away quickly. A middle-aged man in a business suit suddenly became very interested in his phone. Only a black woman in her 50s met Lily's eyes with something that looked like sympathy and recognition. This situation? Lily repeated, and despite the pain, despite the humiliation burning in her chest, she felt something else stirring. Something that had been building for years through every dismissive comment, every assumption, every time someone looked at her and saw only what they wanted to see. The pain in her abdomen spiked suddenly, sharp enough that she gasped and had to brace herself against the reception desk. Are you all right? Jennifer started to stand, genuine concern on her face. She's fine, Dr. Ashford cut in. And she needs to leave. Now. Before I call security. Lily looked at him directly for the first time. Really looked at him. Dr. Richard Ashford, according to the nameplate on his coat. Chief of Internal Medicine. Graduated from Johns Hopkins, if the diploma on the wall behind him was any indication. A man who had probably never been turned away from anything in his entire privileged life. I'm in pain, Lily said simply. Real pain. And you're refusing to even examine me because of how I look. I'm refusing because we have standards here. Dr. Ashford replied, and there was something almost gleeful in his condescension now, like he was enjoying this. Meridian Private Medical Center serves a certain class of patient. We have relationships with our clients that go back years, sometimes generations. We're not a charity clinic for people who wander in off the street. The woman in pearls made a small approving sound. The business suit guy nodded slightly. And Lily understood in that moment that this wasn't just about Dr. Ashford. This was about a whole system. A whole world of people who had decided that your bank account determined your worth as a human being. I understand, Lily said quietly, and something in her tone made Dr. Ashford's smile widen. He thought she was accepting defeat. He thought she was going to shuffle out quietly like a properly chastised poor person who had dared to step above her station. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that 3 hours ago, Lily had received a phone call that was about to make this conversation very, very interesting. She turned and walked toward the exit, each step sending fresh waves of pain through her abdomen, each breath feeling like it cost her something. Jennifer called after her. Miss, please, let me at least call you an ambulance. But Dr. Ashford cut her off with a sharp, That's enough, Jennifer. As Lily pushed through the glass doors into the bright afternoon sunlight, she heard Dr. Ashford say to his waiting patients, "I apologize for that disruption. Some people simply don't understand that quality healthcare is a privilege, not a right." The pain was real. The humiliation was real. But what Dr. Ashford had just done was give Lily something she hadn't had before: absolute clarity about what needed to happen next. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and made a call. "Marcus? It's me. Yeah, I'm fine." "Well, not fine, but that's actually not why I'm calling." She glanced back at the gleaming glass building behind her, at the gold letters spelling out Meridian Private Medical Center. "Remember that acquisition paperwork we were supposed to sign tomorrow? I want to move it up. Today. This afternoon. And Marcus? When we take over, I want a complete list of every staff member, especially the physicians. Starting with someone named Dr. Richard Ashford. If you're enjoying this story of justice and watching arrogance meet its match, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what happens when Lily walks back through those doors is going to be absolutely unforgettable." What Dr. Ashford didn't realize as he settled back into his comfortable chair, already forgetting about the poor woman he'd just dismissed, was that he'd made the biggest mistake of his career. And in exactly 2 hours and 43 minutes, he was going to find out just how expensive that mistake would be. Lily ended up at County General, 40 minutes away by bus because her hands were shaking too badly to drive. The emergency room was packed with people who looked like her, people who couldn't afford to be dismissed based on their clothing. A nurse practitioner named Rosa examined her with actual care, asked real questions, and diagnosed acute appendicitis within 20 minutes. "You need surgery," Rosa said gently, her hand warm on Lily's shoulder. "Tonight, probably." "How long have you been in pain?" "Since this morning. It got worse around noon." "And you went to a private clinic first?" Rosa's expression shifted to something knowing and sad. "Let me guess. They turned you away." Lily nodded, and Rosa sighed in a way that suggested this wasn't the first time she'd heard this story. "Dr. Chun," Rosa said, reading from the insurance card Lily had handed her, and something in her tone changed. "Wait, Dr. Lily Chun, as in Chun Medical Technologies? The ventilator company?" It was Lily's turn to nod, and she saw Rosa's eyes widen with recognition, and then something close to anger. "And they turned you away? Do they have any idea?" Rosa stopped herself, took a breath. "Never mind. Let's focus on getting you healthy." "But Dr. Chen, after you're better, somebody needs to do something about places like that." "What doctor?" Ashford didn't know. What he couldn't have known from looking at her worn sneakers and Target jeans was that Lily had spent the last 6 years building Chun Medical Technologies from a garage startup into one of the fastest-growing medical equipment manufacturers in the country. The company she and her late husband David had founded with their last $30,000 and countless sleepless nights. David had been the engineer, the brilliant mind who could see solutions where others saw impossible problems. Lily had been the business force, the one who convinced investors to take a chance on 2 kids from nowhere with a prototype ventilator that cost a fraction of existing models. 3 years ago, David had died in a car accident. A drunk driver, wrong place, wrong time. A marriage cut short at 29 years old. The company had been worth maybe $3 million then. People had assumed Lily would sell, take her portion, disappear into comfortable grief. Instead, she'd worked harder. 16-hour days, sleeping in her office, wearing the same 3 outfits on rotation because buying new clothes felt like a waste of time when people were dying from lack of affordable medical equipment. She'd poured every dollar back into research, into manufacturing, into making sure that cost would never be the reason someone couldn't breathe. Last quarter, Chun Medical Technologies had been valued at $240 million. And this morning, the Meridian Health Group had agreed to sell her their entire private clinic network, including the flagship location where Dr. Ashford worked, for $180 million. The paperwork was supposed to be finalized tomorrow, but after what had just happened, Lily had called her attorney Marcus and moved everything up. By the time Rosa was prepping her for emergency appendectomy, the acquisition was already in motion. Back at Meridian Private Medical Center,
Dr. Ashford was having an excellent afternoon.
The Chen woman, if that was even her real name, had left without further incident. He'd seen 3 high-paying patients, each of whom had complimented the facility's exclusivity. One had even said, "I'm so glad you maintain standards here, Richard. So many places are letting just anyone through the doors these days." Dr. Ashford had agreed wholeheartedly. He was in the staff lounge around 4:30 p.m., making himself an espresso from the machine that cost more than most people's monthly rent, when Jennifer approached him hesitantly. "Dr. Ashford? That woman from earlier, the one you turned away?" "I looked up her insurance information after she left. Jennifer, I thought we were done with this. Her policy was platinum tier. It would have covered everything, including specialist consultations. And her name was Lily Chen. I Googled her and... Are you seriously questioning my decision?" Dr. Ashford set down his espresso cup with deliberate precision. That woman was clearly lying about her insurance. People like that, they get a basic policy and then try to access premium facilities. It's fraud, Jennifer. I was protecting this clinic. But sir, I verified her policy. It was legitimate. And she's actually... Enough. Dr. Ashford's voice cut through the lounge, making 2 other nurses look up from their break. "I don't know what your problem is today, but if you continue to undermine my clinical decisions, we're going to have a very different conversation with HR. Do you understand?" Jennifer's face flushed. She nodded once and left quickly, her eyes bright with frustrated tears. Dr. Patricia Morrison, the black woman who had been in the waiting room earlier, had followed Jennifer into the staff area. She was an anesthesiologist, one of only 3 black physicians at Meridian, and she'd been watching Dr. Ashford for years. "You know," Dr. Morrison said quietly, "one of these days, Richard, your assumptions are going to cost you more than you're prepared to pay." "Is that a threat, Patricia?" "It's an observation. I've seen you dismiss patients based on appearance at least a dozen times in the past year. Most of them don't have the resources to complain. But eventually, you're going to misjudge someone who does." Dr. Ashford smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Patricia, I've been chief of internal medicine here for 8 years. My patient satisfaction scores are the highest in the facility. The board loves me. So unless you have an actual complaint to file, I suggest you focus on your own department." What neither of them knew was that at that exact moment, in a conference room 15 miles away, Marcus Way was shaking hands with the CEO of Meridian Health Group, finalizing the sale of their entire clinic network to Chan Medical Technologies. Effective immediately. Dr. Morrison left the lounge shaking her head, and Dr. Ashford returned to his espresso, already thinking about his dinner reservations at the new French restaurant downtown. He had a date with Amanda, a pharmaceutical sales rep who laughed at all his jokes and didn't ask complicated questions. His phone buzzed with a text from the Meridian CEO. "Richard, need you to attend a brief all-staff meeting at 6 p.m. in the main conference room. Important announcement. Mandatory attendance." Dr. Ashford sighed. These meetings were always tedious, usually about policy updates or sensitivity training that he'd sit through while checking his stocks. But mandatory was mandatory, and he liked to maintain his image as a team player. He texted back, "We'll be there." At County General, Lily was being wheeled into surgery. Rosa held her hand briefly before the anesthesia took effect. "Dr. Chen," Rosa said, "for what it's worth, I hope you do something about that place. Places like Meridian, they think healthcare is a luxury for the rich. But you and your husband, you proved it doesn't have to be that way." Lily squeezed Rosa's hand weakly. "By tomorrow morning," she murmured as the drugs pulled her under. "Things are going to be very different." The surgery took 90 minutes. Successful, routine. Exactly the kind of procedure that Meridian could have handled easily if Dr. Ashford had bothered to examine her. If he'd seen her as a human being instead of an inconvenience. While Lily was in recovery, Marcus was sending emails. Lots of emails. To every department head at Meridian. To HR, to the legal team, and most importantly, to Dr. Richard Ashford's direct supervisor, informing them that as of 6 p.m., Chan Medical Technologies would assume full operational control of all Meridian facilities. Dr. Ashford saw the meeting reminder pop up on his phone at 5:45 p.m. He finished his notes. grabbed his coffee, and headed to the conference room, completely unaware that in exactly 15 minutes, the comfortable world he'd built on assumptions and prejudice was about to collapse. And Lily, waking up slowly in a recovery room at County General with Rosa checking her vitals, asked grudgingly, "What time is it?" "Just after 6, Rosa answered. Lily smiled, still drowsy from anesthesia, but clear-headed enough to know exactly what was happening right now at Meridian Private Medical Center. "Perfect timing," she whispered. The conference room at Meridian Private Medical Center was packed. Every physician, every department head, most of the nursing staff. Dr. Ashford took his usual seat near the front, next to Dr. Morrison, who gave him a look he couldn't quite read. "Do you know what this is about?" he asked her. "I have some idea," she said quietly. "You might want to pay attention to this one, Richard." Before he could respond, the CEO of Meridian Health Group walked in, followed by a man Dr. Ashford didn't recognize. Asian, maybe 40, expensive suit, carrying a leather portfolio that screamed money and power. "Thank you all for coming on short notice," the CEO began, and there was something in his voice that made the room go silent. "I'm going to be direct because you all deserve to know. As of 1 hour ago, Meridian Health Group has sold our entire private clinic network to Chun Medical Technologies. Effective immediately, you are now employees of CMT." The room erupted. Voices overlapping, people standing, phones coming out. Dr. Ashford felt his stomach drop. Chun Medical Technologies? The company that made cheap ventilators for county hospitals? They'd been bought out by a manufacturer. "Please, let me finish," the CEO said, raising his hands. "This is actually excellent news for all of you. CMT is one of the fastest-growing medical companies in the country. Your salaries will be honored, your benefits improved. But there will be changes to how we operate." Significant changes. The Asian man stepped forward. "My name is Marcus Wei. I'm the Chief Legal Counsel for Chun Medical Technologies. Starting tomorrow morning, we'll be conducting comprehensive reviews of all patient care protocols, billing practices, and admission policies. Dr. Chun, our CEO, has some very specific ideas about how medical facilities should be run." Dr. Ashford leaned over to the physician next to him, Dr. James Whitmore. "This is ridiculous. They make equipment. What do they know about running a premium clinic?" "Our founder," Marcus continued, and something in his voice made Dr. Ashford look up, "built this company on a simple principle: that access to quality health care should never be determined by the size of someone's bank account. That ends today at all Meridian facilities." "This is a joke," Dr. Ashford said, loud enough that several people turned to look at him. "You can't just change the entire business model overnight. Our patients expect a certain level of exclusivity. That's what they pay for." Marcus looked directly at him. "And you are?" "Dr. Richard Ashford, Chief of Internal Medicine." He stood buttoning his jacket. "And I have to say, this is extremely concerning. Meridian has built its reputation on providing superior care to a select clientele. If you start accepting every walk-in off the street, our standards will plummet." "Every walk-in," Marcus repeated, and there was something dangerous in his tone now. Interesting choice of words. Dr. Morrison put her hand on Dr. Ashford's arm, trying to pull him back down, but he shook her off. "I'm just being honest," Dr. Ashford continued. "This facility serves a specific demographic. We have relationships with families that go back generations. You can't just throw that away to chase some idealistic fantasy about healthcare for all." "Dr. Ashford," the CEO interrupted, his face pale. "Perhaps this isn't the time." "No, let him talk," Marcus said calmly. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. "Dr. Ashford, tell me, in your medical opinion, should patient care be determined by someone's appearance? By what they're wearing, for instance?" "Of course not," Dr. Ashford said, though his voice had lost some of its confidence. "But there are practical realities. Premium facilities have premium costs. We can't operate like a county clinic." "Speaking of county clinics," Marcus said, still looking at his phone, "I'm told there's an excellent one about 40 minutes from here. County General, I believe. Have you heard of it?" The room had gone completely silent. Dr. Morrison's hand was over her mouth. Jennifer, the receptionist, stood by the door looking like she might cry.
I'm sure it's adequate for its purpose, Dr. Ashford said stiffly.
Its purpose being to serve people you don't think belong here? I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Marcus looked up from his phone and his expression was ice. Dr. Ashford, at approximately 2:47 p.m. today, you refused to treat a patient who presented with acute abdominal pain.
A patient with verified platinum tier insurance. A patient who, I might add, is currently in recovery at that adequate county hospital after emergency surgery for appendicitis. A condition that, left untreated, could have killed her. Dr. Ashford felt the blood drain from his face.
That woman lied about her insurance. No, Jennifer said from the doorway, her voice shaking but clear. I verified her insurance personally. I told you it was legitimate. You refused to examine her anyway. She was clearly trying to scam us, Dr. Ashford said, but his voice sounded weak even to himself.
People like that, People like what, doctor?
Ashford? Marcus's voice could have cut glass. Please finish that sentence. Dr. Morrison stood up. Marcus, I was there this afternoon.
I witnessed the entire interaction. Dr. Ashford refused treatment based solely on the patient's appearance.
He made it clear she wasn't the right kind of patient for this facility. That's not. I made a clinical judgment. You made a judgment, Marcus agreed. Just not a clinical one. He closed his phone and looked around the room. Let me tell you all something about Dr. Lily Chen, the woman who now owns this facility. She started Chen Medical Technologies 6 years ago with her late husband.
They built it from nothing while working out of a garage.
She wore the same clothes for weeks at a time because she was pouring every dollar into research and development. And do you know why? No one answered.
Because she watched her husband die in an emergency room that couldn't afford the equipment that might have saved him. Because she grew up watching her parents work 3 jobs each and still couldn't afford decent healthcare.
Because she understands that in this country, your zip code and your bank account should not determine whether you live or die. Dr. Ashford sat down heavily. His mind was racing, trying to piece together what was happening. The woman you dismissed this afternoon, Marcus continued, is the same woman who revolutionized ventilator technology, who made it possible for hundreds of hospitals to afford life-saving equipment, who built a $250 million company while people like you assumed she was nobody because of how she dressed. I didn't know, Dr. Ashford said weakly.
That's exactly the problem, Dr. Morrison said, standing next to Marcus now. You didn't know and you didn't care to find out.
You looked at her clothes and decided she wasn't worth your time. Marcus opened his portfolio and pulled out a stack of documents. I have here patient complaints going back 3 years.
18 documented cases of Dr. Ashford refusing treatment or showing bias based on patient appearance,
race, or perceived economic status.
Most of these patients didn't have the resources to pursue formal complaints.
But now they will. This is witch hunt, Dr. Ashford said, but no one was listening to him anymore.
Dr. Chen will be arriving tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., Marcus announced to the room. She'd be conducting individual meetings with all department heads and reviewing every case from the past year where patients were turned away or treated differently based on non-medical criteria.
I strongly suggest you spend tonight reflecting on your interactions with patients, because she will have questions. The meeting ended in chaos. People talking over each other, some expressing relief, others concern, a few openly celebrating.
Dr.
Ashford sat frozen in his chair, watching his colleagues file out around him. Dr. Morrison stopped beside him. I tried to warn you. This is insane, Dr. Ashford said. She can't just come in here and destroy everything we've built. Richard, we didn't build anything. We just kept it from people who needed it most. She paused at the door. And by the way, Dr. Chen isn't coming to destroy anything. She's coming to fix what people like you broke. At County General, Lily was sitting up in bed, eating terrible hospital jello and reading emails on her phone. Rosa checked her vital signs while trying not to look too curious about whatever had her patient smiling like that. Good news? Rosa asked. Something like that, Lily said. Rosa! How would you feel about a job offer?
Head of nursing at a private facility, better pay, full benefits, and a mission to actually serve everyone who walks through the door?
Rosa's eyes widened. Are you serious? Dead serious.
We're going to need people who actually care about patients, not their bank accounts. Interested? When do I start?
Lily's smile widened. How about you come with me tomorrow morning?
I have a facility to visit and some people to meet. Particularly one doctor who's about to learn an expensive lesson about judging books by their covers. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Meeting done.
You should have seen his face.
He still doesn't fully understand what's coming.
Lily typed back.
He will tomorrow.
See you at 9 a.m. She set down her phone and looked at Rosa. You know what the best part is?
He spent the whole afternoon thinking he won. Thinking he successfully kept someone lesser out of his perfect facility.
And now he gets to spend all night wondering exactly how badly he just destroyed his own career.
Tomorrow morning, Dr. Richard Ashford would arrive at work like always, park in his reserved spot, walk through doors he thought belonged to him. And he would discover that the woman he dismissed as nobody was now the person who controlled everything. Dr. Richard Ashford barely slept that night.
He kept replaying the meeting, trying to convince himself it wasn't as bad as it seemed. So what if the owner was the woman from yesterday? He'd made a clinical judgment call. She'd looked disheveled, possibly unstable. Any doctor would have done the same thing.
Right? By the time he arrived at Meridian at 8:30 a.m., he'd almost convinced himself.
He parked in his reserved spot, the one with his name on it, and walked through the lobby with his head high. Whatever this Chun woman wanted to discuss, he'd explain his position calmly and professionally. She'd understand that running a premium facility required certain standards. The lobby was already crowded. Staff members clustered in small groups, whispering.
Several looked at him as he passed, and their expressions made his confidence waver. Pity, that's what he saw in their faces. Why would they pity him?
Jennifer sat at the reception desk, her eyes red like she'd been crying. When she saw him, she looked away quickly. Jennifer, what's going on? Dr. Chun is in the main conference room, she said quietly.
She's been here since 7. Marcus asked that you wait in your office until she's ready to see you.
Wait in my office? I'm the chief of internal medicine. If she wants to meet, she can come to Dr. Ashford. Marcus appeared from the hallway, his expression unreadable. Dr. Chen will see you now.
Conference room A. The walk down that hallway felt longer than it should have.
Through the glass walls of the conference room, Dr. Ashford could see people already seated. Dr. Morrison. 2 people he didn't recognize, probably lawyers. And at the head of the table, a woman in an elegant navy suit, her hair pulled back, looking at a laptop screen.
She looked familiar but polished. Professional. Nothing like. She looked up as he entered, and Dr. Ashford's world tilted sideways. It was her, the woman from yesterday, but transformed. Or maybe not transformed at all.
Maybe this was who she'd always been, and he'd been too blind to see it. Dr. Ashford, Lily said calmly, closing her laptop. Please sit down. He remained standing. This is highly irregular.
I don't know what you think happened yesterday.
But I know exactly what happened yesterday. Lily's voice was calm, almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. You looked at me, decided I wasn't worth your time based on my appearance, and refused to provide medical care. Despite my verified insurance.
Despite my obvious pain.
Despite your receptionist confirming that I had every right to be there.
That's not. I made a clinical assessment. You made a judgment about my bank account. Lily stood.
And even though she was several inches shorter than him, Dr. Ashford felt small.
You saw worn sneakers and assumed poverty. You saw casual clothing and assumed I didn't belong.
You made a decision about my worth as a human being in approximately 15 seconds, and that decision almost cost me my life. That's dramatic.
Appendicitis is routine.
Routine if caught in time, doctor,
Morrison interrupted. But you sent her away.
She had to take a bus 40 minutes to County General because she was in too much pain to drive.
By the time she got there, she was hours away from rupture. She could have died, Richard.
And it would have been because you couldn't see past her clothes. Dr. Ashford's mouth went dry. I didn't know it was that serious. Because you didn't bother to examine her, Lily said simply. You didn't ask questions. You didn't check her symptoms. You just looked at her and decided she wasn't your kind of patient. Marcus opened a folder and slid several documents across the table. We've spent the night reviewing records. In the past 3 years, you've refused or delayed treatment for 23 patients. Of those 23, 19 were people of color. 21 appeared to be from lower-income backgrounds based on their clothing and address. All of them had valid insurance. All of them had legitimate medical concerns. This is cherry-picking data, Dr. Ashford said, but his voice cracked. You're twisting. We have statements, Marcus continued. Jennifer documented several incidents where you explicitly told her to screen patients before bothering you. We have emails where you complained about the wrong type of patients affecting the facilities. Image. Lily pulled out her phone and placed it on the table. And then there's this. She pressed play. Doctor. Ashford's voice filled the room. Tinny, but clear through the phone's speaker. Meridian caters to a very specific clientele. I'm sure there's a county clinic that can help you. His own voice. His own words. Jennifer must have recorded it. We have relationships with our clients that go back years. Sometimes generations. We're not a charity clinic for people who wander in off the street. Dr. Morrison shook her head slowly. Each word landing like a physical blow. Quality healthcare is a privilege, not a right. Lily stopped the recording. The silence in the conference room was deafening. I want to be clear about something, Lily said, and her voice was steady. Controlled, but underneath it, Dr. Ashford could hear rage that had been carefully leashed. My husband David died because we couldn't afford the right equipment at the right hospital at the right time. He died because people looked at us and made the same assumptions you made about me yesterday. That we didn't matter enough. That our lives had different value based on our bank accounts. She walked around the table. Slowly. Deliberately. I built Shun Medical Technologies so that would never happen to anyone else. I worked 16-hour days for 6 years. I wore the same 3 outfits because I couldn't justify spending money on clothes when people were dying. And yesterday, I walked into a facility that my company now owns. And you looked at those same clothes and decided I was trash. Dr. Ashford tried to speak, but nothing came out. Here's what's going to happen, Lily continued. Your employment at this facility is terminated immediately. We'll provide the standard severance package because, unlike you, we believe in treating people with basic dignity. However, we're also forwarding all of this documentation to the state medical board. They'll determine whether your license should be reviewed. You can't. This is one incident. 23 incidents, Marcus corrected. Documented over 3 years. That's not a mistake, Dr. Ashford. That's a pattern. Dr. Morrison stood. For what it's worth, Richard, I tried to warn you. Multiple times. But you were so confident that your position protected you. That your patients loved you enough that nothing else mattered. My patients do love me, Dr. Ashford said desperately. My satisfaction scores. Your satisfaction scores among wealthy white patients are excellent, Lily agreed. But healthcare isn't supposed to be a country club. It's supposed to save lives. All lives. Not just the ones you deem worthy. Security appeared at the door. 2 officers, professional but firm. These gentlemen will escort you to your office to collect your personal belongings, Marcus said. You have 30 minutes. Your access codes have already been deactivated. This is insane, Dr. Ashford said, looking around the room for support and finding none. You're destroying my career over a misunderstanding. No, Lily said quietly. You destroyed your career the moment you decided that some human beings matter less than others. I'm just making sure everyone knows it. As security led him toward the door, Dr. Ashford turned back. You'll regret this. Do you know how many powerful people I know? How many patients I have who donate to this hospital? Lily met his eyes calmly. Do you know how many people died or suffered because doctors like you decided they weren't worth treating? How many families were destroyed because quality healthcare was kept behind walls that you guarded? She paused. I don't care about your powerful friends, Dr. Ashford. I care about the people you turned away. And if you're watching this story unfold and you've ever felt dismissed by someone who was supposed to help you, subscribe so you never miss these moments when justice finally comes through. The walkthrough. The lobby was the longest of Dr. Ashford's life. Every staff member watched him. Some looked angry. Some looked satisfied. None looked surprised. Jennifer stood up as he passed. For what it's worth, she said quietly. I'm glad she fired you. You made me lie to people. You made me turn away sick people because they didn't look rich enough. I hated it. In his office, surrounded by diplomas and awards and photos of himself with satisfied wealthy patients, Dr. Ashford began packing his personal items into a box. His hands were shaking. 8 years. He'd been chief of internal medicine for 8 years. Johns Hopkins graduate. Published researcher. And it was all gone because of one woman who couldn't take a simple dismissal. Except it wasn't one woman, was it? It was 23 people. It was years of looking at human beings and seeing only their value to his reputation. It was every time he'd chosen comfort over compassion, image over ethics. His phone buzzed. A text from Amanda, the pharmaceutical rep. Just heard what happened. Don't call me anymore. Another text from Dr. Whitmore. Medical board wants to talk to all of us. What did you do, Richard? Another, from a colleague at his golf club. Saw the news. Probably best if you skip next week's game. The news. What news? He opened Twitter on his phone and immediately wished he hadn't. The story was everywhere. Doctor refuses treatment to patient. Gets fired when she returns as his boss. Videos from the conference room somehow leaked. Audio of his conversation with Lily playing on loop.
His name trending, but not in a good way.
The comments were brutal. This is why people die from treatable conditions. Imagine being so classist you refuse to treat someone with appendicitis. She bought his entire hospital just to fire him. That's the energy we need. Dr. Ashford sat down heavily in his chair, his former chair, and stared at the box of personal items. Everything he'd built, everything he'd worked for, gone in less than 24 hours. And the worst part? The part that made him feel sick? Deep down, in a place he didn't want to examine too closely, he knew they were right. 6 months later, Lily stood in the newly renovated lobby of what was now called Meridian Community Medical Center. The gold letters that had once screamed exclusivity had been replaced with simple, welcoming signage. The waiting room that had once seated 20 carefully selected patients now accommodated 50 people from every economic background. Rosa had indeed taken the position as head of nursing. She stood beside Lily now, reviewing the morning schedule on a tablet. We're fully booked through next week, Rosa said with satisfaction. And the patient satisfaction scores are actually higher than they were under the old management. Turns out treating people with dignity is good for business, Lily said with a slight smile. Dr. Morrison appeared from the hallway, wearing her white coat and a genuinely happy expression that had become her trademark over the past months. She'd been promoted to chief of staff, replacing the position Dr. Ashford had once held. Morning meeting in 10 minutes, Dr. Morrison said. We're finalizing the scholarship program for medical students from underserved communities. I think we're ready to announce 20 full scholarships for next year. Make it 30, Lily said. David always said the best way to change medicine is to change who gets to practice it. Jennifer, who was still at the reception desk but now as assistant director of patient services, called out, Dr. Chun, there's someone here who'd like to see you. Says she was a patient here about 7 months ago. Her name is Maria Rodriguez. An older Latina woman approached, holding the hand of a teenage girl. Her eyes were bright with tears. Dr. Chen? I don't know if you remember me, but I came here last year with chest pain. Dr. Ashford took one look at me and said the clinic was at capacity. I ended up at County General. They found a blocked artery. Said if I'd waited another day. She trailed off, squeezing her granddaughter's hand. I heard what you did. How you fired him. How you changed this place. I just wanted to say thank you. Lily took the woman's hand gently. I'm so glad you got the care you needed. That's what this place is supposed to be about. That's what every medical facility should be about. After Maria left, Lily checked her phone. An email notification from the state medical board. She opened it, read quickly, then showed it to Dr. Morrison. Doctor, Ashford's license has been suspended pending completion of ethics training and supervised practice. Dr. Morrison read aloud. He's filed an appeal, but given the pattern of documented bias, she trailed off. He brought this on himself. Any word on where he ended up? Rosa asked. Marcus, who had just arrived with his morning coffee, answered. Last I heard, he's working at a concierge practice in Connecticut. Very small, very exclusive, house calls for wealthy clients only.
Apparently that's the only place that would hire him after everything became public. So he learned nothing.
Jennifer said sadly. Maybe not, Lily agreed. But everyone who worked with him learned something. Everyone who heard this story learned something.
And most importantly, the people who were turned away before know that someone finally stood up and said their lives matter. Over the following months, the transformation of Meridian became a model studied by healthcare administrators across the country. Patient outcomes improved, staff morale skyrocketed. The facility actually became more profitable because they were serving more patients and accepting more insurance types.
Chun Medical Technologies used the success to acquire and transform 3 more private clinics that had similar exclusivity problems.
Each transformation followed the same pattern. Fire the gatekeepers.
Hire people who actually cared about medicine over money. Open the doors to everyone. Lily started speaking at medical conferences, telling her story.
Not for sympathy, but as a reminder that behind every patient dismissal, every casual act of medical discrimination,
there was a human being whose life had value. 1 year after the incident, Lily returned to County General to visit the emergency department that had saved her life.
Rosa came with her, along with several staff members from Meridian. The plaque they installed read, "In memory of David Chun, and in honor of all patients who have been turned away from care they deserved. May we never forget that healthcare is a human right, not a privilege." Dr. Richard Ashford, meanwhile, lived in a beautiful house in Connecticut and made excellent money treating patients who never challenged him. Never made him uncomfortable, never forced him to examine his own biases. He told himself he was happy. He told his new colleagues that he'd been the victim of a vindictive former patient who'd blown one incident out of proportion. But sometimes, late at night, he would scroll through the articles about Meridian's transformation. He'd read about lives saved, about patients who received care they'd previously been denied, about a medical system slowly, painfully learning to serve everyone. And sometimes, in moments of uncomfortable honesty, he would remember the look on Lily's face when he dismissed her. Not the anger, not the humiliation, but the momentary flash of something else. Disappointment that a doctor, someone who'd sworn to do no harm, had chosen comfort over compassion. Those moments passed quickly. It was easier to be angry, to feel wronged, to blame cancel culture or changing times, or anything except the truth that he'd built his career on a foundation of bias and exclusion. His wife left him after 6 months. His daughter, a pre-med student, changed her last name and stopped taking his calls. His reputation never fully recovered. But he still had money, still had a medical license, still had patients who didn't question him. He'd kept his privilege. He'd just lost his purpose. Lily stood in her office at Chun Medical Technologies headquarters, looking at the photo on her desk. David, smiling, holding the prototype ventilator that had started everything. She touched the frame gently. "We did it," she whispered. "Not just the company, not just the money. We actually changed something." Marcus knocked on her open door. "Board meeting in 5 minutes. They want to discuss the expansion proposal for the West Coast facilities." "Let's go change some more things," Lily said, standing up. As she walked through her company's headquarters, past engineers and designers and medical professionals all working to make healthcare more accessible, Lily thought about that day in Meridian's waiting room. The pain, the humiliation, the crushing disappointment of being seen as less than human by someone sworn to help. She thought about all the people before her who hadn't had the resources to fight back, who'd taken their dismissals and gone home and suffered or died in silence because society had decided their lives had less value.
And she thought about all the people who would never know her name, but would receive care at a transformed Meridian, who would be treated with dignity regardless of their clothes or their accent or their address, who would live because someone finally said enough. The best revenge, Lily had learned, wasn't destroying the person who wronged you. It was building something so much better than what they represented that their cruelty became irrelevant. It was proving that their worldview was not just wrong, but obsolete.
Dr. Ashford had looked at her and seen nothing worth his time.
She had looked at the system he represented and built something worth everyone's time. In the end, that was the only victory that mattered.
If this story of justice, transformation, and refusing to accept a world where some lives matter less than others resonated with you, remember that change starts when people like Lily decide that being dismissed is not an ending, but a beginning.
Share this story, subscribe to this channel, and never let anyone convince you that your dignity is negotiable. Because the most powerful thing you can do when someone tries to make you invisible is to become impossible to ignore. And sometimes,
the person who underestimates you becomes the catalyst for you to show the world exactly who you've always been. The conference room was waiting. The work continued.
And somewhere in the country, a person who looked like they didn't belong walked into a medical facility that Lily had transformed and received the care they deserved. That, more than any revenge, was everything.